It's Tuesday the 7th of April across Greater Manchester. This is Channel M's Lunchtime News and these are today's headlines. They brought murder to Manchester's streets. Now 11 gang members are waiting to hear how long they'll spend in jail.
No one can ever put right what these men have done to our family, but we hope that by locking them away for many, many years, this will mean that no other family will ever have to go through the heartache and the pain that we've all had to suffer.
Also coming up, the dad who lost his daughter to a rare heart condition now wants to warn other people about it.
What we want to see is that more fit, active children are screened so that this will not happen.
And we travel to Kosovo to visit the Peace Park dedicated to Manchester.
They've gone through hell, and when you're in that situation, you tend to shut the doors and just focus on family. And I think what we're trying to do here is to open those doors and get the families back in the community.
Good afternoon, more on those stories to come, but first, a teenager from Haywood has been sentenced to 4.5 years for accidentally killing a mum of 3 with a shard of glass. Neil McNulty had hurled a bottle through the door of a pub after door staff told him that he couldn't go in. Well, Georgia Calvin-Smith joins us with more on this story now. Georgia, good afternoon. First of all, just give us a little bit of background to this case.
Well, it happened in Boxing Day last year. Neil McNulty was out in Haywood with his friends celebrating his 19th birthday. They were quite drunk. They tried to get entrance into a pub. They refused entrance, and in the heat of the moment, an argument ensued, resulting in Neil McNulty throwing a bottle that he picked up off the street at one of the bouncers. The bouncer moved out of the way, and unfortunately the bottle flew through the open door of the pub, shattered against a pillar, where one of the shards of glass ended up severing an artery in the neck of Miss O'Kane.
Now, what actually happened at court this morning?
Well, the judge acknowledged that McNulty's behaviour was out of character. It was fuelled by alcohol, and the tragedy basically ensued because of a lethal cocktail of alcohol and temper. He ended up sentencing McNulty to 4.5 years in jail. The family were outside court earlier reacting to what the sentence was.
The justice system is just a joke. I mean, how many family lives have got to get destroyed before something's changed about it? It's just a joke. My kids' lives are only worth 4.5 years, but more likely would they be out in about 3. It's just a joke. 19 years of age, it's nothing for a 9-year-old kid, that.
I would like to ask anybody, the judge or his lawyer or his barrister, what would they do if it was happened to him, if it was their girl?
Well, I must clarify that it's actually a Young Offenders Institute he'll be being sent off to. The police, after the sentencing, did make it very clear that what they want to get across is not only that yobbish behaviour and excessive drinking on the streets will not be tolerated, but also that bouncers should do everything they can to make sure that drinkers do not take glasses and bottles from venues out onto the streets, because if that bottle wasn't available, Miss O'Kane could very well still be alive today. OK,
Georgia Calvin-Smith, thank you very much for joining us. 11 gang members who ruled some of Manchester's streets with fear are waiting to be sentenced. 5 for murder, the other 6 for drug and firearms offences. Ben Bland's at Liverpool Crown Court.
11 men convicted of a catalogue of gang-related crimes, including 6 counts of murder. They're all members of the notorious Gooch gang. Colin Joyce and Lee Amos were the gang leaders. Joyce was found guilty of murdering Ukal Chin, who he believed was part of rival gang the Longside crew. Alongside Amos, Joyce was also found guilty of murdering Tyrone Gilbert at Ukal's funeral and attempted murder for shooting another man there as well. At the time of the shootings, Joyce and Amos were on early release from prison for a previous firearms offence. The families of Ukal Chin and Tyrone Gilbert gave their reactions through statements read by the police.
No one can ever put right what these men have done to our family, but we hope that by locking them away for many, many years, this will mean that no other family will ever have to go through the heartache and the pain that we've all had to suffer.
Tyrone's death has left a huge gap in our family. We talk about him every day with the children. The oldest 2 often ask where he is and when he's coming home. It's heartbreaking to think he'll never grow up they'll grow up without their dad. He loved his children so much. As a family, we should be celebrating Tyrone's 25th birthday today, such simple pleasures have been taken away from us by the evil these men have committed.
The brothers Narada and Ricardo Williams, together with Ian Campbell, were also found guilty of murdering Tyrone and attempted murder. The three of them, alongside Hassan Shah and Aaron Alexander, were guilty of conspiracy to possess firearms, that related to a shootout in Moss Side, and conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. Ricky Moss was also guilty of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs, while Kyle Wint and Tyler Joel Mullings were guilty of possession of firearms. The 11th man, Gonu Hussein, was the only one to plead guilty to conspiracy to possess firearms and conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. For security reasons, the trial was held here in Liverpool, far from Manchester and the gang's old territory. Since it began last October, the jury has sat through 6 months of detailed evidence and took 6 days to reach verdicts on 26 counts. In the dock, some of the defendants smiled and even sniggered as the jury returned one guilty verdict after another. The convictions were secured by witnesses who bravely broke the wall of silence that had been protecting these men. One woman told police of a machine gun wrapped in cling film and hidden in her attic by the gang, who'd used her Moston home as a safe house.
These witnesses, the 6 witnesses that came forward, were absolutely crucial to this evidence. They were individuals who participated in activities with the gang, some of them. Some of them have admitted their own criminality and culpability. And without them and their crucial evidence as to what day-to-day activity was like with these gang members, we couldn't have got this prosecution home.
More of the details can be found in today's Manchester Evening News. In the meantime, this is a trial that gave us a glimpse into a world where these men used fear, violence and killings to intimidate and control. Later today, they'll all return to be sentenced. Ben Bland, Channel M News.
No criminal charges are to be brought over the death of a Greater Manchester police officer shot on a training exercise. PC Ian Terry was struck in the chest by a fellow officer while they were acting out a simulation at a disused factory last June. Prosecutors say there's not enough evidence against either the force itself or any individual officers. An Italian researcher is claiming he predicted the earthquake there that's now known to have killed 179 people. Lab technician Gianpaolo Giuliani has been studying radon gas, which is sometimes released before such tremors. He says he was told to keep his warnings quiet because officials didn't want to cause alarm. Rescuers are working with their bare hands to dig through rubble in the search for survivors around the city of L'Aquila. A strong aftershock has also hit the area. Post office-style queuing systems could soon be installed at pubs and clubs. It's one of the ideas being considered in Oldham for 22 bars that have drinks promotions. Kevin Duffy's on this.
That's right, James. Now, many people will be familiar with the consequences of cheap drink promotions, and the results sometimes are not pretty on our city streets. Here in Oldham, the Trading Standards Department is proposing to do something about it, making the conditions for drink promotions more stringent. Tony Allen is head of Trading Standards here, and he's going to tell us what is planned, Tony, here in Oldham.
Well, if you're running these very low-price drinks promotions, what we're saying is you have to take additional precautions to make sure that they work well. So we're wanting to slow down the rate of consumption by having a post office style queuing system. And we're also wanting to ensure that there are appropriate door supervisors and police on duty.
Right. And you're putting the burden of doing that on the clubs and pubs themselves?
Well, yes, because they're the ones that are running the promotions. They're the ones that are triggering the problem, so they're the ones that have to be responsible in dealing with it.
They presumably will have to pay for that additional security?
Yes, there's a balance to be had there between them running a promotion and getting the additional business with the costs of the consequences of that promotion, and they have to weigh that balance up when it comes to deciding to run the promotion.
Isn't this a bit unfair on some pubs and clubs who don't have any problems? You're just targeting individual clubs and pubs?
Well, we're targeting the pubs and clubs that are in the town centre of Oldham where there is a specific issue. We're not saying every pub and every club across the whole of the town centre.
How many would you say?
There's 22 in the town centre.
Right. OK. Well, thanks, Tony. Of course, this is just a consultation at this stage. It's part of an ongoing review. And, of course, implementing it is, of course, subject to confirmation by the Council's Licensing Committee. And we'll bring you an update on what's decided in due course. Back to you.
Thanks, Kevin. Manchester City Council's chief executive has been named on a so-called rich list of town hall bosses who earn more than the Prime Minister. Sir Howard Bernstein's salary last year was more than £199,000. That's compared to £194,000 for Gordon Brown. Wigan's Joyce Redfern also earns more. Her wage was £195,000. If we compare those to around the rest of Greater Manchester, you can see the others all get paid less than the Prime Minister's wage. Janet Callender at Tameside being the next highest salary at £165,000. Salford's Barbara Spicer earns the least with almost £136,000. Oldham hasn't released details of its pay. A woman's been raped by a man who asked if she wanted a taxi in Staley Bridge. The attack happened early on Saturday morning near a canal bridge on Mottram Road. Police want to speak to 3 men who tried to help her and are stressing they're not suspects. A 28-year-old man's being questioned after a woman was raped in Longsight on Sunday. She'd accepted a lift from a man that she thought was a taxi driver. The parents of a girl who died from heart failure in her sleep are backing a campaign to raise more awareness about a rare condition. 11-year-old Amy Williams was fit and healthy when she was killed by sudden cardiac death. Beverly Walkden has the details.
12 young people die every week from sudden cardiac death. It's a worrying statistic that's on the rise. Schoolgirl Amy Williams from Worsley was one such victim.
They'd been to Brownies, the usual sort of thing. Amy didn't want to go to bed, as usual, you know, but what 11-year-old does. Julie went to get Amy out of bed on Tuesday morning and she wasn't for getting up. And of course, at first Julie thought she was just messing about. And then she had a close, you know, she's like, come on, get up. And we noticed she just wasn't breathing.
Amy had suffered a massive heart attack.
Well, she was the most fit, sporty sort of character in the family. People who are fit and healthy don't tend to be thought of as being at risk. And yet it's always the fit and healthy people that are the ones that are winding up on the front of the newspapers, like Amy did.
Amy's big sister, 20-year-old Nicola, now attends regular heart screening sessions.
I have a test done. I think if Amy could have had this done, then it would have saved Amy. And if it can get something for me, then that would be good. But you know, if Amy could have had it, then that would have been even better.
The family is backing the campaign CRY, which stands for Cardiac Risk in the Young. They're calling for heart screening for those under 35 years old.
What we want to see is that more fit, active children are screened so that this will not happen. And ultimately, perhaps, that it's done on a routine basis in the same way as children have injections and things.
How and why this condition takes young lives remains a mystery, but families of victims are adamant that more should be done to screen all children from an early age. Beverly Walkden for Channel M News.
Sam Goodman's here with the sport now and details of a big game for the Reds tonight.
Yes, thank you, James. Yes, and Manchester United are preparing for their Champions League quarter-final first leg clash against FC Porto this evening. Rio Ferdinand and Anderson are both injured, but Sunday's goal-scoring hero Federico Makeda is in the squad, and Sir Alex Ferguson also welcomes back Wayne Rooney, Nemanja Vidic, Ji-Sung Park and Paul Scholes in what he feels will be a tough match against the Portuguese champions.
Cristiano said to me when we got the draw, it's a difficult game, this. Because I think we know the experience of Porto. When a team wins its championship every year, like Lyon for instance, when you get in a European tie, you're playing a team with great confidence, you know, because of their supremacy in their own league and country. And that's exactly what you're faced with Porto. They win the league every year. And they evolve the team quite a lot. They sell players, but they bring in Argentinian players, they bring Brazilian players in, and it carries on and carries on. We've watched them now. Well, we've watched the Arsenal games and the Atletico Madrid games, and they're a difficult side.
And the Wigan manager Steve Bruce has admitted he still doesn't know the whereabouts of striker Amir Zaki. The Egyptian didn't return from international duty for a 4th time last week, and Bruce has once again expressed his disappointment and described his absence as unbelievable and ridiculous. And in Speedway last night, the Bellevue Aces were leading 29-25 against Lakeside before rain called off the meeting in the 9th heat. As it didn't reach 12 heats, the Aces don't get the points and the meet will be played again. And in Rugby League, Wigan have signed England centre Martin Gleeson from Warrington season. The deal also sees Richie Mathers move in the opposite direction to join the Wolves. And finally, in cricket, England will consider Lancashire all-rounder Andrew Flintoff as captain for the ICC World 2020 tournament after leaving Andrew Strauss out of the squad. Jimmy Anderson and Sajid Mahmood have also been selected for the tournament in June. But that's all from me for now. We'll have more later on in our early evening news.
Sam, thanks very much for the update. Plenty more to come between now and 1 o'clock. More reaction to the gang members waiting to be sentenced for 2 killings, and we're looking ahead for ideas to keep you busy over the Easter weekend.
We are the merry actors who fight for renown. I once followed a fair lady to the Giant's Gate.
The reason it's called Pesach, it comes from the Old English Pascha, which means Easter, and therefore it's always played at Easter time. And it tells the story of St George, who eventually, through all the trials and tribulations, comes out on top.
This is Tuesday's Lunchtime News. Welcome back. We've got more of our main headlines online at channelm.co.uk. If you log on now, you can see the new police memorial that's been installed to remember officers who've lost their lives on duty here in Greater Manchester. And take a listen to Keith Chegwin singing in celebration of free swimming in Wigan. That's at channelm.co.uk. Next, a peace park has been dedicated to Manchester in a small town in Kosovo. Keen to find out more about why, Channel M's Jerry McLaughlin's been out there for the ceremony.
On the 28th of March 1999, here in Podjeva, Serbian military and police forces were on their 8th day of ethnic cleansing. 10,000 Albanians were driven out of their homes. Also on that day, members of the Borghese and Dorici families, mainly women and children, were gunned down in a garden in which they'd been sheltering. 5 children, Saranda, Johanna, Fatos, Gen and Liri, survived the atrocity, though seriously wounded. And it was British soldiers who evacuated them eventually to Manchester, where they received treatment for their wounds, both mental and physical. And it's thanks to the care that they received in Manchester that the children themselves created the idea to build the Manchester Peace Park here in their hometown of Podjeva.
Luckily, they didn't have to do it on their own, with the driving and supporting force coming from the people at the Manchester Aid to Kosovo charity. I chatted to Treasurer Pam Dawes.
The children asked us if we would make a peace park here, where the massacre happened, in their hometown. And they were looking at the sort of beauty of Scotland, and they said, if only we could make our hometown more beautiful.
It is often easy for us in the UK to take for granted the resources available to us, something MAC chairman Paul Guest knows is in stark contrast with Kosovo.
I think the community here in Kosovo, they've gone through hell, and when you're in that situation, you tend to shut the doors and just focus on family. And I think what we're trying to do here is to open those doors and get the families back in the community and functioning as a community.
The situation in Kosovo is not something that just happened in the late 90s. In fact, it's been safe to say there's been tensions here for thousands of years. However, that's not the point of our trip here. The point here is about reconciliation and peace, and very much about moving on. That's right, isn't it, mate? You're moving on. You just like that radio, mate, don't you?
Channel 5?
Yeah, that's right.
Helping provide focus for the trip were Glastonbury 2008 Emerging Talent winners and Manchester's own The Travelling Band. Aptly named and aptly equipped for the job, the boys are the latest in a line of Manchester musicians, including Elbow and Badly Drawn Boy, to take the project to their hearts, as band spokesman Joe Dudridge explained to me.
Pam Dawes, who runs part of the arts and music side of the charity, she told me about the whole background, and it really touched me, the story of the 2 families and what happened to them. She wanted the travelling band to come out to Podjeva for the dedication. It was just like, well, yeah, totally.
After honouring the memory of loved ones and the dedication at the park itself, the only fitting way to round up the day is with a concert and inviting the whole town. An excellent chance for everyone to enjoy the cross-cultural power of music, dance and entertainment, and also the best way for Podjeva to say thank you for their new park, and for Manchester to say thank you for including us in its dedication.
And it is just a dedication, because there's still a lot of work to be done here at the park, as indeed there is to be done in Kosovo as a whole. One thing is certain though, the 2 communities of Manchester and Podjeva have created a very real and a very strong bond, and it's one that promises to offer much for the future. Jerry McLaughlin, Kosovo, reporting for Channel M News.
And you can see more from Jerry's trip to Kosovo in a special documentary, Manchester to Kosovo, 10 years on Thursday the 16th of April at 8 p.m. Now this week we'll be giving you some ideas on what to do over Easter. Students from Calder High School dust off their pace egg costumes every Good Friday to perform an ancient play through the Calder Valley. Here's more information about it and where you'll be able to see it.
We are the merry actors who traverse the town. We are the merry actors who fight for renown.
The pace egg play is based on the oldest play in the world. It's actually known as the Mummers play, and it's been going on for hundreds of years now. And we've always performed it around the Calder Valley on Good Friday. It's a bit of an Easter tradition, and basically hundreds of people come out to watch it.
I once followed a fair lady to the Giant's Gate.
The reason it's called pace egg, it comes from the Old English Pascha, which means Easter, and therefore it's always played at Easter time. And it tells the story of St George, who eventually, through all the trials and tribulations, comes out on top.
I challenge thee to fear.
It's gone through periods of popularity and decline, and at the moment it's on a resurgence. People up and down the valley in the community are very behind the project. They've made the costumes for us a few years ago, and we've had books written in the last 10 years. So it's an ongoing tradition.
The costumes and the hats are everything that Calder High do. It's unique to Calder High. We've actually got our own hats for each character and our own pink costumes. They've been going now for over 30 years, and there has been rumours about changing them, but for us, we think, let's keep the pace egg image going forever. You know, we're known for it. And again, it's different, it's unique, and the hats really give that symbolic effect of the pace egg.
It's on Good Friday. The boys start in the morning. They all meet here at school, and then teachers will bus them from various points through the valley. They start in Todmorden and then work their way back through down the valley. So it's a very long day for them.
The ones I would urge you to get down to are the ones at Hebden Bridge and Heptonstall, because of course every performance is unique, but they for me are the biggest. It's got the true heart of the Calder Valley involved. Hundreds of people turn out, I can guarantee you that, and the atmosphere there truly is electric, and it's fantastic really, and the audience have a huge role to play, and it'd be great to see as many of you who even have not been there before down there this year cheering us on really.
I hope you'll remember this pace egging time.
Well, there have been some sunny spells poking through the clouds during the morning. Let's take a look at the forecast for the rest of the day now with Michelle Eagleton.
Well, we are seeing highs of between 11 and 12 degrees today. Quite mixed. We had a little bit of cloud and some showers this morning, but later on this afternoon it is going to be really nice and glorious. In fact, 5-6 o'clock we're going to see lots of sunshine. Do make the most of it, because the rest of the week isn't shaping up to be very good at all. We're in for some wet, rainy weather on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday, but hopefully by Easter Sunday it will start to clear up. Fingers crossed.
This is Channel M, our top stories. It's 4.5 years in a young offenders institution for a teenager from Haywood who threw a bottle into a pub, causing a shard of glass to slash and kill a mum of 3. 19-year-old Neil McNulty was drunk and had been refused entry to the premises. Part-time barmaid Emma O'Kane bled to death after being hit by the glass. 11 members of one of Manchester's most notorious gangs are waiting to be sentenced over 2 killings. They were convicted yesterday for their parts in the deaths of Ukal Chin and Tyrone Gilbert. Those are today's headlines, and that was the Lunchtime News. We'll have much more on all those stories and the rest of the day's news with Andy Crane from 5 o'clock tonight, but from me and the rest of the Lunchtime team, have a good afternoon. Bye-bye for now.